Hey y'all, hey. Welcome to Tuesday Night Installment of Life According to Cree the podcast. Cree said what? Cree said what is a space and a place where we talk about what's trending, what's hot, what's sometimes not, and what you need to know right now. I'm your host, Cree Cole, and tonight, baby, we're getting in a conversation that is trending, uncomfortable, but very much necessary. Tonight, we're talking about Boosie Badazz. Now, y'all already know Boosie's never been one to hold his tongue. So when he comes online and he says something, he said what he said. And it's definitely going to get people talking. He's going to say what he said. He's going to double down. He's going to do all the things. And people say, that's just Boosie being Boosie. But tonight, I want us to go a little bit deeper. Because it's not about just one rapper. It's not just about pool party. This is not just about a post, a clip, or an opinion that got everybody talking. To be honest with y'all, with all that's going on and the years and years of the same conversation from the same person, it feels like hate. It's definitely public disrespect. And it's gender policing. This is about how the use of words like beliefs, preferences, tradition, I was raised different, I was raised back in the day. When people use those to justify making other people feel unsafe, unseen, and targeted. And let me just say this before we go any further. This is not an attack on Boosie Badazz as a person. Not him alone. Not I decided to pick him out of the sky to be the one. None of that. Let me tell you something. Being from the Bible, living in the Bible Belt, okay? Living down south, especially back in the early 2000s, baby. I know they pack it out now, but I know for a fact that this would have been a time frame when I would have been outside in those spaces like that. Back in the early 2000s, baby, they said Boosie Badazz was coming to town. If the club opened at 9:30 and they said you could get in free before 11 o'clock, people was outside at 9:30 already in line and probably still didn't meet them before 11 time frame to get in for free. And Boosie might not have come on till 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the damn morning. Him and that damn Pastor Troy. Let me tell you something. They used to turn the city out. They used to bring every county, every city, every town. If they were somewhere in the area, if Boosie was somewhere in the area, let me tell you something. They would come to see Boosie. I got multiple songs, verses from collabs and all of that I ain't gonna do it right now. I felt like I want to do it. BOOSIEBADAZZ. Look, wipe down my face. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, like I was saying, this is not an attack on Boosie as a person. It's not an attack on Boosie as an artist. It's not about people not being able to have questions. It's not about pretending everybody has already unlearned everything they were taught. It's not about telling people that they can't have their beliefs, values, and boundaries, or things that they are still trying to understand. But it is about challenging harmful commentary. It's about challenging the kind of language that turns people into jokes, threats, warnings, or objects to inspect. Because we can have conversations without cruelty. We can disagree without dehumanizing people. And if the conversation around gender, sexuality, masculinity, femininity, identity requires somebody else to be humiliated, then we need to ask, what are we really defending? Because sometimes people say that they're defending their values. One of their favorites is defending women and children. That's one of the faves. They're defending manhood. But when defense starts to look like disrespect, shaming, when people are using slurs, when there's public targeting, I ain't gonna lie, I got questions. It physically makes me uncomfortable. So tonight we're gonna talk about Boosie's recent comments about transgender women not being allowed at his event. We're gonna talk about his history, a history that many of us have, including even myself, as far as commentary regarding the LGBTQ community. We're going to talk about his comments around men with feminine traits or styles and how he suggested women need to call these men out. You know, I always feel away with my millennial ass. When a man start telling people, telling women folk like me, you know, that it's our duty or our job to, but that's not the here nor there. We're going to talk about masculinity, womanhood, public platforms, and why people are so bothered by how other adults identify, dress, love, and show up in the world. And I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Because, you know, I say y'all all the time on all the different nights. Everything that we're talking about, it's not just, every topic that I pick, it's not just about y'all. It's about me too. Because y'all know I don't get behind this mic pretending I always had everything figured out. So let's get into it. Recently, Boosie made comments about transgender women not being allowed at his pool party, his adults only pool party. Now, from what has been reported, he made it clear that trans women would not be allowed. And after people reacted, he doubled down. He basically stood on the idea that it was his establishment, his event, and his rules. Now, before I even go all the way into my perspective, I want to make sure we separate a few things, okay? People host private events all the time. People decide what type of environment they want. People decide what kind of space they're creating. And people decide who they want around them. And I know some people are going to argue, well, if it's his event, he can make the rules. And yes, people can make rules for their spaces. But my issue isn't the rule. My issue is the language. It's the tone. My issue is the public humiliation. I can tell y'all, I myself, my sister, and two of my cousins host a Valentine's Day event every single year. We do it the first weekend in February, the Saturday before Super Bowl Sunday. Check it out if you live in the local area. Y'all know who y'all are. Anywho, it is a Valentine's Day event. With it being a Valentine's Day event, it is an event for women because Valentine's Day is a man-made holiday that was created in order for women to celebrate other women. Not a holiday to bash men, a holiday for women to celebrate other women. And we have a good time when we turn up. Thing about it is, we have our rules. There are no men allowed. There are no men allowed. No men on the catering staff. No men there decorating. No men are allowed at the actual event. Our DJ is a woman. Our caterer is a woman. Our decorator is a woman. Our sweet treats lady it is a woman. All of our vendors are women. Our photographer is a woman. It is our bartender, woman. All women's events. I stand 10 toes on that. But it's due to the fact that the nature of the holiday in which we are celebrating does not support the presence of men because we are there to celebrate one another. So I completely get it when people say, you know, my event, my rules. I ain't got no problem with that. My issue is the way that transgender women are being talked about like they are bodies to inspect instead of human beings to respect. Because there is a difference between saying this is the type of event that I'm hosting and turning a whole group of people into a spectacle. When we advertise our event every year, there is absolutely no mention of men. I don't mention that men aren't allowed. I don't mention that men are not supposed to participate in Valentine's Day. None of that. There is absolutely no mention of men at all because the party isn't for them. It's not for them. It's not against them. It's just not about them. You know, there's a difference between having a boundary and using your platform to invite people into disrespect. Like I said, I don't mention men at all. Matter of fact, I'm lying. I take that. I do mention men. At some point, over the course of us selling tickets every year, I do a call out to men to get their girl and that girl's girl crew an invitation to the brunch. I do that. I do that. I do a call out to the men for them to gift their girl with some tickets or take VIP tables to the brunch. Outside of that, it really ain't no need. There's a difference between having a private preference and public degradation. I don't have to, because the event itself and the holiday itself isn't about degrading or disrespecting men. There's absolutely no reason when advertising or marketing our event for men to be belittled, because it's about a celebration of other, not the downplay or degradation of another. And that's where the conversation has to go a little deeper, because when people start talking about checking bodies, checking features, checking voices, Adam's apples and shit, shaking hands, or whatever else things make somebody real or not real, now we're not just talking about a party. I am a woman with a lower register voice that was born from a woman with a lower register voice. No Adam's apple. Double chin, but no Adam's apple. But I do have a lower register voice. I'm not a small woman. I'm a plus size woman. I'm a big bitch. I'm a big bitch. I'm 5'7", 5'8", 275 pounds. I'm a big chick. And I'm my daddy's daughter. 100%. I would be scared. I would be scared. Boosie could come roll up and pull up at my motherfucking house and give me a personal invitation. If that nigga wasn't gonna be at the door, goddamn, I ain't gonna. Because when you start talking about stuff like that, you start talking about surveillance. And you're putting people's bodies on trial. Now we're talking about strangers being invited to inspect someone's gender. And that's dangerous. Because once you normalize inspecting people's bodies to decide whether or not they're woman enough or man enough, you don't just put transgender people at risk. You put masculine presenting women at risk, feminine presenting men, tall women, women with deeper voices. You put women with different body types at risk. You put anybody who does not fit inside of someone else's narrow ass definition of gender at risk. Because now everybody becomes a suspect. Now everybody has something to prove. Now, somebody else gets to decide if your womanhood or your manhood is acceptable to enter into a space. And that's not protection. What that is control. It's not safety, it's policing. And when we normalize things like that, we're creating a world where people feel entitled to question, expect, mock, embarrass anybody who does not look how they think a woman or a man should look. And that's where the real harm comes in. Some of y'all be acting like y'all don't know what I be talking about, right? Some of y'all be acting like y'all don't know what I be talking about. So before I go any further, I'm going to play a short clip. Now, I'm not playing this clip in order to promote what he said. I'm not playing this clip because I agree with it. And I definitely don't think that anything that he's saying in this clip is funny. I'm playing it because sometimes we need to hear the tone and the pattern for ourselves. Sometimes when we summarize what someone's saying or try to show a pattern to different people, they don't really get it. People soften it in their own minds. They say, oh, well, he probably didn't mean it like that, or that's just the way he talked. People are being too sensitive, because it's Boosie. They know how he is. But sometimes you need to hear all of it out loud so you can understand the energy behind it. So let's go. I don't have nothing against the LGBTQ. Did you have a couple of shows? People try to stop him or something like that?
Yeah, I just had a show I think I was in El Paso, Texas, and gay people was out there heavy, bro. They was trying to stop my show. They tried to go to the city council. They was marching out there trying to stop my show, but I ended up making a showing. I did an apology. Because the promoter was like, in order to make this go, they want
you the union. Made some comments about you.
Yeah.
When your name came up in an interview with her, she said you got a lot of dick on your mind.
Yeah.
And you responded.
So if you do got dick on your mind, you feel some type of way about that. Baby, you a hypocrite, baby.
Oh, so she's gay bashing you, basically.
That's you gay bashing. No, you gay bashing. You're a hypocrite. And I told them they need to speak up. And it was so right. Talking about the men dressing like women, painting their nails, painting their toes, all this. The women got to saying something we trying to impress. We got to blowing them down, boy. You look like a hoe. You won't be me, come hang with me. If the city girls and all this get to talking about these mothers, I bet it will calm down. You will see me like the women need to start speaking up. If the women don't speak up, it's accepted. Because we're trying to impress the women.
And that's where I find the issue. Those just aren't opinions. Though that's how I was raised. Because Boosie is what, 50 to 60 years old at this point. That's just not keeping it real. It's public shaming, it's gender policing, and that's using the platforms that you're provided to turn somebody else's identity into a punchline or warning or a target. And baby, we have to stop pretending like cruelty becomes less harmless because somebody calls it honesty. We have to stop pretending like disrespect becomes wisdom just because somebody says it boldly. Because they got a little 1-2-1-2 with it when they express it. We have to stop pretending that hate becomes acceptable just because it comes wrapped up in a tradition or by a favorite actor, actress, athlete. Because some of the most harmful things people say are things that they learned before they ever had the courage to question. That's why this episode is not just about Boosie. It's about the pattern. A lot of people who like to hide behind the words preference, belief, values, and tradition. So let's talk about it. Because things are not automatically wrong. You can have a preference, a belief, a boundary. You can know what you like, what you're attracted to, what you're comfortable with, and what spaces you personally want to be in. That is your absolute right. But here's where it changes. When you can't express what you like without disrespecting what you don't like, now it's no longer just a preference. When you can't stand on your belief without demeaning someone else's existence, now it's no longer just a belief. When you can't actually explain your boundary without making another group of people the enemy, now it's no longer just a boundary. This is when it becomes an attack. Because preference doesn't just require you to insult, or doesn't require you to insult the opposite. Belief doesn't require you to humiliate someone that's different from you. A boundary doesn't require public disrespect. You can say this ain't for me without saying something is wrong with them. You can say that just ain't my preference without turning it into a punchline. It's okay to admit that you don't understand something without the person making the person feel unsafe or unseen. That's the difference. The issue is not that everybody has to think the same, date the same, believe the same, or be attracted to the same things. Like, that would make for a boring ass work. The issue is when people take their personal preference and use it as permission to attack what they don't prefer. And baby, that's not a preference. That's a judgment dressed up like honesty. That's discomfort pretending to be conviction. That's disrespect. That's hiding behind, I'm just keeping it real. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I think we need to sit with that for a minute because a lot of people do this. Like, they'll say, I just like what I like. Okay, then like what you like. They'll say, I'm not attracted to that. Okay, then be attracted to what you're attracted to. That's not something I would choose. Well, nobody asked you to fucking choose it. Like, but why does your preference need to be an insult or have an insult attached to it? Why does your belief need an audience or require someone else to be embarrassed? Why does your comfort require someone else to disappear? That's when I stop believing that it's just a preference. Because real preferences can stand alone. They don't degrade. They don't need an announcement. They don't even need an announcement. Like, one of the most annoying things is when I'm like with a group of people and say they're talking about linking up. And they say, yeah, let's link up Saturday. Yeah, let's cook some fish. Yeah, we can do a fish fry. Yeah, let's do a fish fry. And then you had that one person that said, I don't like no fish. Nobody asked you. Like, what is the purpose? Like, a real preference doesn't require an invite for the crowd to laugh. Real preference can be simple. That's not for me. And keep it moving. You can, instead of announcing out to the whole world, I don't eat fish. Man, just let the people plan the thing out and just be like, oh, well, I'm gonna bring some chicken. I'm gonna bring some chicken because I don't eat fish. The fact that you don't like fish is irrelevant. But when people have to keep explaining what they do not like, what they do not accept, what they don't want to be around, who they don't believe is real, who they think is wrong, who they think should be checked, and who they think should be excluded. Baby, that's no longer a preference. That is a campaign. And there are many people. Many people. I'm old millennial, born in 81. I'm 45 years old. There are people, definitely people my age and older, baby. They have been on a campaign for years, minding other people's business and ain't got nothing to do with them. And that's where the real harm begins. And this is especially important when the group of people being talked about is already vulnerable. When you're talking about who is already getting targeted, already being debated about, already being disrespected, already being used as political pawns to make points, and are already moving through the world without really ever feeling safe, your words are not neutral. Your words land somewhere. They land on real people who are already trying to be brave, real people who are already tired of being discussed like a problem. Your words land on real families who are trying to love one another better. They land on young people who are trying to just understand themselves. I promise you, as a middle and high school basketball coach, 11, 12 years old, they are all over the place. And social media is so prominent in our day-to-day lives now, as far as communications, entertainment. Social media embodies all of that. So it lands on those very kids that you call yourself trying to protect. They land on people who already feel unsafe when walking into certain spaces. So yes, you can have preferences, but you need to make sure that you have responsibility too. And responsibility means knowing when your words are no longer about what you personally like and when they become an attack on something that you personally dislike. This is the line. That's the difference. And that's what people keep trying to blur. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. For a minute. Because y'all know I ain't really too keen on lying and bullshit. Now, there was a time when I had my own acceptance issues when it comes to transgender women. And social media did not make that any better. I ain't even gonna lie to you. And I want to say this real carefully because this is not me trying to make myself the center of the conversation. This is me being honest about growth. I wasn't walking around wishing harm on anybody, trying to disrespect nobody, trying to make anybody feel unsafe. But I had discomfort. I had questions. And I ain't gonna lie, it was confusing to me. I had things I thought because of what I had been taught, what I had seen, what I had heard, and what I had grown up around, and did not understand. You gotta understand, I'm older than women. I'm a Zennial. I remember when transgender women were called transvestites. I'm so glad that they corrected that because, oh, that was ugly. Like, I'm pretty sure that was the clinical term at the time, but I am so glad that it has come so far from that. And like, I had to sit with that. I had to ask myself why I felt entitled to have an opinion about somebody else's damn identity. I had to ask myself why another person living in their truth when all I do is try to get people to understand me in my own. Why that made me uncomfortable. I had to ask myself what exactly I thought needed to be approved or disapproved. Why was I in that? And when I got honest and I actually sat with that thing, I thought about it. I was like, bitch, that's none of your motherfucking business. Bitch, that's none of your business. Why is you minding them damn people business? Why you minding them people business? Them people ain't talking to you. Them people ain't talking to you. Them people ain't talking to you. Them people ain't bothering you. You know way too many people in the community and love on too many people in the community to think that just a couple of people that may have said something online that was triggering would define an entire community of folks. You know better, bitch. How somebody identifies was not mine to control, and how somebody lives wasn't mine to police. How somebody showed up in their truth wasn't mine to inspect, and it definitely wasn't for me to be trying to publicly humiliate people. I never get to people. I can, as jacked up as people are, they'll say something, and I look at them and be like, but you know, you said what? You said what? I don't understand every part of somebody's journey. And that's okay. But that doesn't change the fact that they still deserve respect. That was the shift for me. Because sometimes we call it beliefs when it really is just simply discomfort. I'd be like, I just don't agree with that. I can get with other stuff. I can tell you, I promise you. I got out with them like, I'm cool with this, I'm cool with that, I ain't got no problem with that. But that right there, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. When the real question is, why do we feel so entitled to agree or disagree with someone else's existence and how they are choosing to show up in this world? Baby, when I got honest with myself, I realized that I have my own learning process without that I need to go through without making other people's identity my business. I got too much shit with me. I got too much shit with me. Me worried about who the hell doing what over there. And that's growth. It's maturity and it's accountability. And that's what I want more for us as a community and for us to make room for. Growth doesn't mean that you're always right. It's admitting where you're limited. Growth means you can say, I used to think one way, but I learned better. I learned better. I do better because I learn better. Like, growth means you can look at your own discomfort and say, this is mine to work through and not anybody else's to carry. And that right there is what a lot of people do not want to do. They don't want to set accountability for their own bullshit, their own biases, their own prejudices. Like, I don't know who deemed us the one group that's allowed to be that's allowed to be disrespectful and separatist from everybody else. I don't know who deemed us that, and we've been fighting against that. I got this little rule that I adopted many, many years ago, probably about 15 years ago. If I think something or I say something, and I take out that marginalized group and I put black in it, would I be offended? Would I be bothered? And if I would be bothered, that's something that I need to work on. That's something that I need to figure out. Like, people want to make their discomfort everyone else's responsibility so that they don't have to stretch and they don't have to grow. They want people to be quiet so that they don't have to question what they were taught. But baby, the world does not owe us comfort at the expense of someone else's dignity. And let me say something else about growth. Growth doesn't always happen because someone yells at you. Sometimes growth happens because life humbles you. Sometimes growth happens because you meet people whose humanity challenges your assumptions. Sometimes growth happens because somebody you love forces you to see a situation or an issue differently. Sometimes growth happens because you get tired of carrying beliefs that make you hard. And for me, I had to realize that I could not preach love, healing, self-acceptance, self-love, all that shit, while still thinking I had the right to decide whether somebody else's identity was valid. That shit don't line. That ain't line up. How am I gonna tell people to love themselves first, but then actually feel a way like someone else loving themselves first, honestly, is a damn problem? How am I going to talk about healing, wholeness, and freedom, but only for the people whose lives make me more comfortable? That's not freedom. That's selective compassion. And selective compassion is still a level of control. So I had to check myself and I had to think real, real hard about how I wanted to live my life. And if I really wanted to live in the fullness of it. And I think that's something that more of us need to be willing to do. Not publicly for applause, not to be trendy, not because somebody forced us, but because we cannot grow if we refuse to be honest. And honesty sometimes sounds like, I used to think like that, but I don't think like that anymore. I used to be uncomfortable, but I realized that discomfort was mine. I used to repeat what I heard, but now I know better. I used to judge what I didn't understand, but now I'm learning to respect people without needing to fully understand every part of their journey. And that's not weakness. That is maturity and emotional intelligence. That's what it looks like to grow without needing to be dragged into it. And let me be clear, growth does not mean everybody is going to understand everything overnight. That's not realistic. Some people are still going to be working through language, the language of pronouns and all the things. Some people are still going to be working through their beliefs. Some people are still going to be trying to separate what they personally feel from what they publicly say. Some people are still going to be trying to understand the difference between disagreement and disrespect. But while you are learning, what I ask you to do is to not do harm. While you're processing, while you're uncomfortable, while you're asking questions, be better than what we see. Because somebody else's dignity should not have to wait until you finish unlearning some bullshit. This also connects to something else that Boosie said, the idea that women need to call men out for their feminine traits or their feminine styles. And baby, that's where I had to pause. Because why is it always a woman's job? What the hell we got to do with that? We are not everybody's mama. We are only mother to the kids that we birthed. We are only women to the kids that are around us. So you feel like the men ain't gonna listen to you. Why they wouldn't listen to you is astonishing to me. But you gonna enlist women to do it. We're expected to raise children, heal the men, forgive the pain, soften the home, be strong, but not too strong. Be feminine, but not weak. Be independent, still make a man feel needed, support everybody, nurture everybody. And now we're supposed to be policing people's masculinity too. And I don't like I don't like the women who do that. The one who like, a guy have a certain trait about him and they'll be like, okay, this is implying that they're not masculine. I can't stand that. I can't stand that. Because their preference appears to be feminine to you. Like, those men are a lot of things when they want to be picked up for the dates. Those men are a lot of things when they want you to pay. Feminine ain't one of them. Another conversation for another day. But feminine ain't one of them. But expecting us to police men too? Absolutely motherfucking not. If a man is uncomfortable with another man wearing nail polish, that is his uncomfortable to sit with. That's for him. That's his discomfort to sit with. If a man is uncomfortable with another man wearing a certain type of clothes or color, expressing himself a certain way, that is his discomfort to examine. It's not even for him to check. It's something for him to sit with himself. Women don't need to be drafted into that level of insecurity. Because a lot of this is not about protecting women. And that's one of the things that people with the obias like to project off on but what about the women? What about the kids? A lot of this is about controlling how people show up. It's about controlling who gets seen as a man and who gets seen as a woman. It's about controlling how people dress, identify, and exist. And when people can't control it privately, like I said, it's a pattern. They try to shame it publicly. Now let's sit with this masculinity piece a little bit longer, because this is where a lot of people get loud. A lot of people will say they want real men. But when you ask them what a real man is, too often, the answer is about image, how they dress, how they walk, how deep their voice is, how many women they get, how he acts, how little emotion he shows, how much control he has, how much fear he can create. But baby, that's not manhood, that's a performance. That's a performance. A costume can look masculine. A walk can look masculine. A man can look like everything the world told you a man should look like and still be irresponsible, emotionally unavailable, dishonest, unsafe, and unhealed. So if we're going to talk about men, let's talk about the full picture. Is he accountable? Is he kind? Is he responsible? Emotionally mature? Can he protect without possessing? Lead without controlling? Love without humiliating? Does he apologize without being forced? Does he parent without needing praise? Does he respect women when he has nothing to gain with them, or when he's not trying to sleep well? Does he respect people in general who can't do anything for him? That tells me more about manhood than nail polish ever could. Because painted nails don't make a man unsafe. A crop top does not make a man unsafe. Depending on depending on how he built up and what his outfit look like. The little baby tees is a little iffy. Because they iffy on women too for the same reason. A soft voice does not make a man unsafe. A feminine style does not make a man unsafe. But arrogance can, violence can, entitlement, misogyny, a refusal to be accountable, all of that can. That's what we need to be checking. And I want women to be free from the assignment of having to validate or invalidate any man's masculinity or volunteering to do so. If it ain't your man, what the fuck they got to do with you? If he feels insecure, we're supposed to soften it. If he feels rejected, we're supposed to explain it gently. If he feels rejected, we're supposed to soothe him. If he feels less than a man, we're supposed to rebuild him. And now if another man expresses himself in a way that he doesn't like, women are supposed to call out too? Hell no. That's too damn much. We're not responsible for guarding the gates of manhood. Men need to defend manhood in a way that does not require women to police it, fear it, fix it, or perform for it. And honestly, masculinity is healthy. It should not need constant defense. Healthy masculinity should not be threatened by softness, expression, another man's clothing, or having to shame women in order to feel more acceptable. Healthy masculinity can make, room for difference without feeling erased. That is what strength looks like. Not control, not humiliation. Strength is secure. And when something is secure, it doesn't need to attack anything that's different from it. So when people say men are becoming too feminine, I want to ask, what exactly are you afraid of? Softness, expression, men having freedom. Are you afraid that the rules you were taught are not the only rules that me, mom, them, and Uncle Book them told you? Are you afraid of manhood? Are you afraid that manhood can't exist without aggression? Because you an aggressive ass nigga. And that's how you measure who real and who ain't, who hard and who not. And I have conversations with grown people. I ain't talking about no young people. I'm talking about grown ass men. Let me bring y'all back to the fact that this is a podcast for grown people. I'm a grown ass woman. So I ain't talking to no kids. I ain't talking to you. I'm talking to y'all old ass niggas. Are you afraid that masculinity can make you gentle? Because if your version of manhood can only survive when everybody performs it the same way, then maybe it was never strength. I know men where who they are as a man or what they present into the world as a man was built on pressure, fear, control, and tradition. And that's where we have to have, why we have to have this type of conversation, because everybody has to like the same style. Everybody doesn't have to be attracted to the same thing. Everybody doesn't have to understand every form of expression. But because nobody should have to be publicly humiliated just because their expression makes someone else uncomfortable, it's something that needs to be talked about, and it's something that needs to be protected. I touched on it a little bit. But these people with these so-called beliefs and tradition love to use women as the excuse. Do not say you are protecting women when what you are really doing is policing people. Do not say you're standing up for women while ignoring the actual issues women keep talking about. You see it in that compilation. And there's more. Constantly talking about transgender women, gay men, all of that, constantly. And this thing, if it was something that it was only being talked about by Boosie, it would be something else. But no, these are conversations that I find myself in with men in my life. You hyper focused on men, but it ain't got nothing to do with women. It ain't got nothing to do with women at all, because women are still talking about domestic violence. Women are still talking about sexual assault, being underpaid, dismissed in healthcare, being harassed, not being believed. Women are still talking about men who harm them and then get protected by the community. Women are still being controlled, silenced, and blamed. So if the only time somebody wants to protect women is when they can use women as a shield to attack trans people, then I have questions. Because that doesn't feel like protection. That feels like convenience. And baby, women know the difference. If you want to protect women, listen to us. Believe us. Stop excusing the men that harm us. If you want to protect women, stop making women responsible for men's emotional immaturity. Outside of his mama, sometimes you can. Sometimes you can't holler at the moms. But nonetheless, if you want to protect women, stop using us as props in arguments you're really having about yourself. Because women are not props, shields, or talking points. Women are not here to make your prejudice sound more noble. Because whenever people want to target a group, they often use protected language. They say, I'm protecting women, I'm protecting children, I'm protecting values, I'm protecting culture. But if your version of protection requires public disrespect, then it may not be protection. Again, it is control. And a lot of y'all, men and women, need to learn the difference. The thing leading up to this has been for everybody. But now I want to talk to us. Just us. Because we know what it feels like to be stereotyped. We know what it feels like to have people look at us and make assumptions. We know what it feels like to be judged before we even open up our mouths. We know what it feels like to be treated like a threat. We know what it feels like to have people fear us and then turn around and use that fear, religion, politics, tradition, and so-called values to justify mistreating us as a people. So why would we turn around and use those same tools against another marginalized group? Why would we take language of oppression and aim it at someone else? Like, why would we demand humanity for ourselves and then make someone else have to fight for theirs? I know that y'all try to make stuff make sense, but it really doesn't. And I know that may make some people uncomfortable, but uncomfortable doesn't mean untrue. If we want grace, we have to give grace. If we want respect, we have to give respect. If we want to be seen in our full humanity, then we have to be careful not to deny humanity to somebody else just because their life doesn't look like ours. That doesn't mean there won't be times where we're going to have hard conversations. There will be. We can have real conversations about faith, parenting, dating, attraction, boundaries. We can have real conversations about what we understand. And that we're still learning. But honest conversations don't require cruelty slurs or any of that. It does not require reducing somebody's whole life to their body. It doesn't require making trans people responsible for our discomfort and our views as a community. And it definitely doesn't require acting like hate is courage, because it's not. Disrespect ain't truth. Yes, people are allowed to disagree, but disagreement is not the issue. The issue is what people do with their disagreement. Do you disagree and move on with respect, or do you disagree and try to make somebody else feel less human? Do you agree and keep your boundary, or do you disagree and campaign for humiliation? Do you disagree and say that's not my life? Or do you disagree and say that person shouldn't be allowed to exist in peace? That's the difference. Because some people use disagreement as a cover for disrespect. You can disagree with somebody and still not call them names. You can disagree with somebody, not mock their body, not put them in danger. You can disagree with somebody and still not encourage others to mistreat them. You can you can disagree with somebody and still recognize that they are a human being. That's maturity. And if your disagreement cannot exist without disrespect, then maybe it's not a disrespect. Maybe it's not a disagreement. Maybe you have contempt, and contempt is dangerous. Because contempt doesn't just say, I see things differently. Contempt says, you're beneath me. You're less than. You deserve to be mocked. Your pain doesn't matter. And when public figures speak with contempt, people who already feel that way feel validated. And they spread their foolishness out in their day-to-day lives. And that's why platform matters. Well, I know that was a lot. But as you all know, all of our topics come from the Life According to Cree mailbag. So we're going to get into our mailbag question. And the question directly asks Cree, can people have personal beliefs without publicly disrespecting the LGBTQ people? And if you've been watching all this time, you know that I believe absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. You can have your beliefs, but you also have to take responsibility. You have to have care, have humility, have enough maturity to know that your discomfort isn't always the truth. Sometimes it's just discomfort, and it's discomfort that is yours and yours alone to work through. Whether it's with whoever you pray to, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your clergy, whoever it is. It is up to you to deal with your discomfort. And your discomfort, when you're working through your discomfort, doesn't require you to minimize or try to diminish someone else's dignity. So for tonight's final word, Boosie can say what he wants to say. People can agree with him. People can disagree with him. People can debate private events, personal beliefs, public platforms, and all the different cultural values. But I need us to stop pretending that disrespect is just honesty. I need us to stop pretending that public shaming is protection. I need us to stop pretending that trans people, gay people, feminine men, masculine women, or anybody else that does not fit into a certain mold are responsible for everybody else's comfort. Because, baby, real strength does not need to humiliate people. We need to stop putting women in charge of police and masculinity that men have not even taken the time to define. Real manhood does not need to be protected from nail polish. Real womanhood doesn't have to be protected or doesn't need strangers checking it at the door. And real humanity does not need everybody else's approval in order to exist. So ask yourself this. Are you standing on beliefs? Or are you hiding behind discomfort? Are you protecting people? Or are you controlling people? Are you speaking truths? Or are you repeating what you were taught without ever asking whether or not it caused harm? That's the conversation. That's the part people want to spit. But when I say spit, Lord, the part that people want to skip. And y'all know on Cree Said what? We're not skipping the part that needs to be said. I'll let y'all go. Make sure you are connected to Life According to Cree, the podcast, wherever you listen or watch. You can catch the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, and iHeartRadio. Subscribe to Life According to Cree TV on YouTube, turn on your notifications, and make sure you do not miss the next conversation. After you watch, you are free to come back, come into the comments, and let me know what you think. People have personal beliefs without publicly disrespecting the LGBTQ community. And why do you think some people are so bothered by how other adults identify, dress, love, and show up in the world? Let's talk about it. Thank you all for tuning in to Life According to Cree, the podcast. I am your host, Cree Cole. And until next time, y'all already know. Live, learn, flourish, and always remember to love yourself first. The LYF in Love Yourself First is not about being selfish. It's about learning how to love yourself better so that you're able to love others better. Till next time, bye.